Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video. Myself and Sloth today breaking down the upcoming Everton match. Tough game. Obviously they're going to be slightly happier than before with their points reduction reduced by 4 points to 6 points. And obviously they beat us in the reverse fixture 1-0. Frustrating game, that, very frustrating. But we've actually picked up some pretty good results from Goodison Park in recent times anyway. So hopefully we can go there with the right attitude, with the right setup, and hopefully bring home 3 points. But before we get into the breakdown, let's just take a look at the Premier League table, because just to give an indication of where the two teams currently are, we're currently in 8th on 39 points, and you can see Everton down there in 15th. Now they've had a few more points bumped up in 25th and quite comfortably above the relegation zone right now. So they'll be looking to improve on that with a win against us, no doubt about that. But Sloth, Goodison Park, Everton, Sean Dyche, talk to me. What's your early feelings about them as a club so far this season, and how much danger they could potentially pose to West Ham on Saturday?
Look, it's no secret how I kind of feel about Everton. I don't particularly like them as a club, but I think I think they could rightly be dismayed about their points tally. I don't really wish relegation on many sides, to be honest. I wouldn't wish it on any club, to be honest. Maybe even Tottenham. Like, I just think the ramifications of it are so big now that if you wish a club relegation, I think you're ignorant as to what it means to people's lives. It's a huge scaling back in terms of jobs and the revenue of a town. But I'm going way out of line here. I don't particularly like Everton, which is annoying because I've got family who are Evertonians, but it's just they're constantly talking about how much of a big club they are. They've got this great city base and all this sort of kind of thing. But yeah, I kind of always find them frustrating to play against. We either nick it or we end up incredibly frustrated by them. And whether it's just we don't turn up or they nick a winner like they did in the reverse fixture, I think it's just they're incredibly tough to play against.
No, definitely. I think that's, we always talk about strikers and their goal droughts and how they always turn up with a goal against West Ham. Dominic Calvert-Lewin could potentially be that person. He scored in the reverse fixture in that 1-0 win for Everton back in October. I think he's now gone 15 Premier League games without a goal since that goal. So I think if you're a betting man, I think you know where your money should be. But we're not advising betting right now. But yeah, Calvert-Lewin for a goal would probably be my pick, because that tends to happen for West Ham. But diverging a little bit, let's take a look at some of the statistics head by head for Everton and West Ham this season. This is kind of the summary. Obviously, both played 26 games. We've scored quite a lot more goals than them. They have struggled in front of goal. I remember in the preview for the reverse fixture, it was the same kind of story. But defensively, they are a little bit more solid than us, having conceded 12 less goals. And assists doesn't really matter as a statistic for this one. But does that surprise you at all that their goals scored is so low, or is that kind of just expected with the Sean Dyche setup, the quality they have in front of goal? Obviously, Calvert-Lewin's not firing. Does that 28 goals so far this season surprise you at all? And does the defensive statistics surprise you as well?
I think it's a surprise because they do have some incredibly talented players. And even if you just think about it in terms of how Sean Dyche likes to set up, the physicality that they have in the air, Branthwaite, Tarkowski, and Onana in particular, they're incredibly physical, big players who, with someone like Dwight McNeil's delivery, you would be expecting to get on the end of it. So while they may be chipping in with the goals, and I know Branthwaite, who's been absolutely sensational this season, and in my opinion deserves to start for England, to be honest. I think he's been incredible. He scored against Tottenham late on, which was fantastic, but also I think he is going to be wanting to add a few more goals to his game, just because of his size, because of his presence and his physicality. And when you look at how Calvert-Lewin's form has dried up, I think that kind of area is where Everton as a whole just need to step it up a little bit. And
Yeah.
Onana, he is a fantastic breakup player, and his impact in the middle of the park for them has been huge. They've got a great physical set of midfielders who have an engine on them as well. But when you look at perhaps how he can add more goals to his game and develop his game further, that's
Mm.
probably going to be the one standout.
Yeah, I mean, they don't. I think it's similar to West Ham. Like when we have certain players that score the goals, it's Paqueta, Kudus, Bowen. They're the three really that create things and make things happen. Everton are kind of similar in the fact that they rely on set pieces a lot to score goals, or they need Calvert-Lewin firing in front of goal, because otherwise you're relying on players like Jack Harrison, Dwight McNeil, who goes through purple patches in small opportunities. But then you've got the likes of Danjuma, who I think is actually injured for this match as well. So they don't have an awful lot of creative talent or goal scoring threat, and it's probably why they're so depleted in front of goal. When Calvert-Lewin's not scoring and his goals dry up, the whole team kind of dries up in front of goal. So yeah, it's defensively we're going to have to be switched on, but I think it's a game we have to play higher up against Everton. We have to take it to them. They're a team that will likely be happy to concede possession if we go there with the intent of playing and dominating the ball and making things happen. Because if we just try and soak up things, we're just going to get pinned in. We're going to struggle to break through. And Everton's defense, yeah, it's been pretty solid in comparison to us. Obviously conceded 12 goals less, but still pretty leaky. Still definitely rooms to exploit. And yeah, I just think we have enough creative talent now with Paqueta back, and obviously that front three against Brentford just shown we can score goals in different ways. Whether it's a nice pattern, whether it's pressing on the front foot and breaking up play with Alvarez. We just have to keep that. We have to maintain that, because I think too often this season and throughout David Moyes' tenure, we're reactive. We wait for how the opposition's going to play and react to that. It's very much we don't impose ourselves, which we need to do when we go to a place like Goodison Park that can be pretty intimidating for clubs to go to.
I think if we start like we did against Brentford, very much on the front foot and pressing, we will. That's how we'll see the best results. You've got to give their centre backs great praise, because it would be very easy to get your head down as Everton once you've been hit with the points deduction. And, as we've said, they've conceded quite a few goals. So it would be easy to get your head down, but they've stuck at it and they've put in some really good performances. And when you think of the defensive unit they have, whether it's McNeil or whether it's the young Ukrainian, is it Saigonov? Apologies if I'm butchering that. But they do have some very solid defensive players. And as I said, I'm a massive fan of Branthwaite. And Tarkowski is someone who we know has long been linked with West Ham Football Club. Apparently wasn't interested in a move down south. But if that hadn't been the case, he probably would have been a West Ham player by now. That said, though, I think Kudus, Bowen on their day can be a problem for any centre-back pairing. And when you think of the sort of guile and work rate and vision of someone like Paqueta, then that pace could really cause them problems.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I think the technical ability that front three as well has to kind of pick apart a pretty rigid Everton defense. But we know you know what you're going to get with Everton defenders. The way Sean Dyche will set them up, and the types of players like you've mentioned, Tarkowski, Ben Godfrey, Mikalenko left back. So yeah, we know what types of players they are, and we know how to exploit it. So if we go to Everton with this passive tone after the 4-2 win against Brentford, which has pretty much got to set the standard now for the rest of the season in games like this, where we should, on paper, be looking to win the game and taking the game to the opposition, it'll be frustrating. So I don't know how David Moyes is going to set this one up. I think he'll keep the same starting 11 as we did against Brentford, because I don't see any reason to change it. Obviously, we'll probably have Calvin Phillips back in the squad after his red card, but you can't bring him back in. I thought Souček was excellent against Brentford, probably his best game of the season. So, all these players deserve to play. We've obviously got Antonio back on the bench as well. And Mavropanos at the back over again. I think that's pretty much a solid pick now, until something else drastic happens at the back. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game. I think if we look at sort of the attacking statistics in a bit more detail to compare both clubs this season, you can kind of see that they're averaging 1.1 goals per game. We're at 1.5, which is actually pretty high considering our recent drought. Then you kind of look at goals from inside the box. We've scored 33. Pretty much every goal they've scored has been in the box as well. Headed goals, we've actually scored 4 more headed goals than Everton, which surprised me considering their set piece threat. But then you look at big chances per game. They've actually created more big chances per game than we have. They're just missing a lot more opportunities. And I think that as West Ham fans, we kind of know that. We kind of know we've been clinical this season. And, when Bowen hasn't been firing, or when Bowen and Kudus and Paqueta haven't been playing, that clinicalness in front of goal hasn't been there. I think we've taken our chances really, really well this season, but when it has started to go a little bit sour and toxic, it's because we haven't been finishing the very minimal chances that we create. So we have to look to create things more often. I think that's definitely one thing to show here, but it also shows that Everton will possess a threat. They just haven't been as clinical as we have. So what is the biggest weakness in that Everton team that you're looking at right now that we could potentially exploit on Saturday?
Well, I mean, I don't know why I said Saigonov. I've obviously been watching too much Girona lately. But yeah, no, Mikalenko is to exploit is you have to have that solid defense. And when you're looking at the goal drought at the moment, I know we are historically the side that goal droughts end against. I think Mavropanos will be, again, trying to make another good impression. And he's just come out of a very similar battle with Ivan Toney, where it's a big physical English player. And I think that he's going to feel confident going into this. So, look, if we can keep Dominic Calvert-Lewin quiet, then in my opinion, that is a huge part of the jigsaw that is solved. It's also just going to be about the middle of the park, because if we can get Souček performing like he did against Brentford, competing with Onana and Decore, if he is fit. I know he seems to pick up injuries, or well, the older he has gotten, the more he seems to pick up these injuries. But they have this big physical midfield, and if Souček can compete with that, I think we'll be in a very good place.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think as well in the reverse fixture, we saw a lot of that kind of Calvert-Lewin, Decore link up. They played very close together, a lot of long balls, and Calvert-Lewin was just winning every header against us and every knockdown as well. And I think Decore should have actually scored in that game from a knockdown from Calvert-Lewin through on goal. So we have to be very wary of that. I think Mavropanos is going to help with that instead of Aguerd. He's much more aggressive, much better in the air, much more physical. He showed against Toney that he won't be bullied. Hopefully, touch wood. And yeah, I think also with Zuma, he's another physical player as well. So we're going to have to be very wary of that. And I think Souček playing deeper with Alvarez as well will help with that. I think that's a good pick to put in there, because Souček can kind of break up that link between the two of them. And then you're just saying to your front four, go and play, go and create, with Ward-Prowse pressing from the front. And you've got Kudus, Paqueta either side. You've obviously got Emerson providing his creativity from fullback. Kufau as well, who had a very good game against Brentford. So we have outlets. We just need to make sure that middle core of the pitch is solid, and as you mentioned, preventing Calvert-Lewin from influencing the game is going to get us a result in this match. So I think it's something Moyes would identify from the reverse fixture anyway. It was quite obvious what Everton's plan was, and it's obvious what they're going to do in this match as well. So let's look at the defensive side of things before we give our predictions. From a statistical point of view, as that is what we're all about, they've actually kept 8 clean sheets, which is pretty high considering the amount of games they've played. You then look at ours, only 5. Goals conceded per game, theirs is a lot lower at 1.3 compared to ours, which is way too high at 1.8. And then you kind of look at other things like saves per game, quite similar. So they're kind of giving up chances similar to us. Errors leading to goal, they've actually made more than us, which is probably surprising considering the amount of errors we've made this season. But yeah, you can kind of see the differences there. Tackles, they're slightly above us. Interceptions, pretty similar. And clearances, We actually make more clearances than Everton as well. So pretty similar defensively. We're just not as tight as the Sean Dyche team is, and we just give up way too many chances. But Everton do also concede quite a lot of chances themselves, even though they've kept quite a high amount of clean sheets. You know, it's similar to how they've underperformed in front of goal. They've overperformed defensively. So with all that into consideration, Slough, big game, for not just for West Ham, but for David Moyes as well. A lot of talk about his contract situation, and we need to keep the pressure on. You know, there's top 7 spots for Europa League again next year, or Europa Conference League. What's your prediction for the match? How does it go, and what's the score going to be?
I don't know. I don't know whether to be very, very chancy here and say that I
Do it.
think we could potentially break a duck and see a clean sheet. I think we
Wow.
may see Dominic Calvert-Lewin to just avoid the West Ham curse. But
Yeah.
I'm going to say 2-0. I think we have enough up top to score goals and cause problems. And I think Pickford's been quite erratic this season. I don't think he deserves to be England's number 1, to be honest, but that's just my personal opinion. I think, though we're looking at the defensive stats and saying, you know, there's less errors leading to goals, I think their centre backs are really the key to that.
Yeah.
So I can see them. I can see Kudus maybe snatching something, causing problems with his pace, and Bowen doing exactly the same. But I think Mavropanos will have a point to prove, and he'll want to really seal that starting place. So I kind of quietly confident we may get a clean sheet, but I'm sure this will be egg on my face by the end of the weekend.
You know what? I said I would never predict a West Ham clean sheet, but I'm actually going to change that. I think you've convinced me there. I think this is the game. This is the game we're going to do it. Break the duck. We're going to come back on here for the review show Saturday night or Sunday, and
we can clip that.
Be smug. Yeah, we'll add this clip into the video. But yeah, I mean, do I think we'll win? I could see it maybe being a 0-0, a boring 0-0, with very small chances in the game. We might nick it 1-0. I'll go 1-0. I'll stay positive. Hopefully we get the win. And as you mentioned, keep a clean sheet as well, which has been a rarity this season. And it would be a much needed 3 points just to relieve some of the pressure. You know, 2 wins in five days would be very good to take into that Freiburg first leg next week on Thursday. So massive game. If we have aspirations for the rest of the season to finish high up in the league in a European position against a rigid Everton Sean Dyche side with Calvert-Lewin, who hasn't scored a goal in 15 games. So tune in for a Calvert-Lewin goal if you are a neutral. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. Make sure to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And Slough, until next time.
Come on, you
On you
irons.
irons.